Hey there, I'm Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. And I am a writer and story nerd, and today I am talking about 3 things to do after you finish NaNoWriMo. Woohoo! You finished! This is so exciting. So this is about what you can do when you have a completed draft. If you have not finished your draft in NaNoWriMo, you're either going to continue it through December, which I really recommend because momentum is a thing, or if you're like super tired, maybe you want to pick it up in January. These might be helpful for you too in thinking about the future. Step number 1, when you are done with your manuscript, put it away and reward yourself. So put it away. Why are you putting it away? When you are writing a manuscript like that, you are so in the weeds and so familiar with the story and you're just so in it that it can be difficult to see the forest for the trees. When you're editing a manuscript, I think especially a first draft, because in my case anyways, my first drafts are usually a little bit of a mess. It's so helpful to read your manuscript like a reader versus a writer when you first go back to it, and that will help you decide what needs to be changed to make it better. Now, it's impossible to be like a pure reader because you did write it, but it's even more impossible to be a pure reader when you haven't taken any time away from the manuscript. Take some time. I apparently have taken like 6 months away from 1837, and I'm now like super itching to get back to it. I should have just posted my NaNoWriMo, wrap up a bunch of things that I learned, and I talk about why I have not looked at it yet in that video. But I'm super itching to get back to it now. So give yourself time to the point where you are curious and you don't remember it as much and you're really excited to get back to it. Give it a break. Just by the way, if you are watching this now and you are not subscribed to my channel, definitely think about subscribing. I love it when people come join this writing community that we're building over here. All right, on to the next one. So number 2 is right after you put it away, write down your thoughts right now about the strengths and the weaknesses. You wrote it, you know where you struggled, you know where you blasted through, you know what you like, you probably have an idea of what you don't like. Write those down now. For example, for 1837, when I finished it, I knew that one character I had really wasn't coming through the way I wanted him to come through. I had a very specific character for him in my head. I felt like he was not on the page. I know that there's sort of a side plot that I feel like doesn't fix in well, and I'm a little bit worried about one of the character's motivations. So those were some weaknesses that I wrote about my own project down when I put it away. And then some strengths I wrote were, I love the setting, I love the story, I think that the overall character arcs work really well, there is this subplot that I think is awesome, I think this moment really worked, that kind of situation. I don't suggest you read that before you reread your work. Just write those things down, take 20-30 minutes to write them down, and then also put that away. That way, when you go back and reread it, you're not starting from scratch as the writer to reorient yourself to your thinking. So document your thinking now, take a break, become a reader, read it as a reader when you go back to it, and then read your thoughts again and see if you agree with them or not, because your perspective, having read the whole story all the way through, will probably change, and maybe that subplot that you thought was bad actually kind of fits, you think, when you read it as a reader. It's also helpful when you're doing anything for a long haul with a big project to write down why you're writing the project and why you love the story, so you can continually remind yourself of it. Particularly if you think that your draft is going to be a big hot mess. This is something that I am doing. I'm writing down why I want to tell this particular story to encourage myself not to totally just give up and say, okay, let's just try again. It's in some cases that might be the right decision. In my case, I know that I need to tell the story, and that even though it's a hard story to tell, I want to, hard as in like challenging for a newer writer, that I want to tell it, I can tell it, and I love this story, it's the one that I have to tell. So write those things down, it will help you. And then number 3 is to use another writing skill for a while. A lot of people say, take a break after NaNoWriMo. Nano burnout is real. I think a way to avoid NaNoWriMo burnout is to change the skill that you're using. So you've been drafting, but there are other writing skills. There's editing. There's conceptual editing a story, there's line editing, and then there's brainstorming and planning, outlining, that kind of thing. And those are all very different skill sets from drafting. So if you can, switch up your skill for December and maybe even January. So if you have short stories or a novel that you wrote before that you can edit, go edit that. If you want to work on a new idea, do that. Or honestly, it doesn't even have to be a project. I see we do a lot of sort of project-based things on AuthorTube, which makes sense because you need to have project-based things in order to publish them. But it can also be useful to, work on smaller things like writing exercises or editing exercises, or focusing in on your reading a lot and maybe making notes about the books that you're reading and just trying to do it very deliberately. Doing one of those masterclass courses or any sort of writing course. Focusing a lot on brainstorming and just coming up with tons and tons of ideas that you could use in the future. There are so many different skill sets and ways that you can improve your writing, and I would argue that writing a full novel doesn't teach you a lot of those skill sets. You can learn a bunch of those skill sets by doing a lot smaller piece by piece things, where you, like exercises, where you really focus on dialogue, some descriptions where you're really focusing on writing good descriptions, coming up with character sketches. There are tons and tons of exercises online. There are tons of exercises in pretty much any craft book that you buy that will give you ideas. Writing prompts. I mean, you can just focus on writing scenes based on prompts. Getting a good scene constructed with the rising action, the falling action, like a sort of turning point, having a revelation or something at the end, is super duper important. It's a super duper important skill. And my writing improved so much just by taking a chunk of time to focus on smaller scenes. I wrote a lot of short stories, a lot of smaller units to improve my scene writing skills. So I'm very interested in hearing if there's any sort of other writing skill that you can explore. Have you thought of doing sort of smaller exercises, or are you focusing on a project? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.